Dino Costa.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to listen to the Dino Costa Show here on SiriusXM's Mad Dog Radio. The views, opinions, and sometimes language employed by the show's host, me, Dino Costa, is not always met with the approval of management here at SiriusXM Radio. Just so you know, I'm giving you advance warning so that you may now make the decision whether or not to continue to listen to the Dino Costa Show, which starts now on SiriusXM's Mad Dog Radio.
Dino Costa.
It's Monday across North America and around the world, and you're listening to the worldwide Dino Costa radio experience on SiriusXM's Mad Dog Radio.
I'm still wondering where the NFL commissioner is. Anybody seen him? Roger Goodell. You out there? Have the New York Giants made a statement yet concerning a guy who advocated for the hood to go and kill George Zimmerman over the weekend? Victor Cruz. Have the New York Giants, has the Mara family said anything yet? Has the Rooney family said anything about one of their players wearing a free Hernandez hat over the weekend during a birthday party? Has Roddy White been disciplined, admonished, slapped on the wrist even a little bit by the Atlanta Falcons? Then again, let me get back to the NFL commissioner. Have we heard from him yet? Where's the NFL commissioner? Now, let me get this right. They love to stand there and say, no justice, no peace. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean exactly? No peace. What does that mean? Meaning what? Meaning that I've got to be even more diligent and more vigilant than I already am? That I've got to, watch myself as a white guy? Is that what it means? The Black Panther Party says what? This means war? What does that mean exactly? Al Sharpton? Oh, this is great for the Al. You know how much money Sharpton's going to make off of this? It says here he's got plans to protest in 100 cities across the country. Isn't that great? Go get him, Al. You piece of shit. Let's see here. Just reading. I just brought up the Drudge Report. Rally shuts down major intersection in Newark. Oh, that's great. That's great. Report, conservative filmmaker beaten at demonstration. Terrific. Oakland, California. Police stood down as protesters terrorized drivers. Very nice. Martin family attorney dons a hoodie on CNN. Is this the real world? The creator of the television show Kaplan, The Wire, fans the flames by saying, quote, I would pick up a brick. Wow.
That's great.
Man. Anyway, I want to know where the commissioner is. We don't know where the commissioner is, but we do know that the rest of the media in this country lathered up the balls of one Victor Cruz before they let him on various shows today. Mike and Mike on ESPN, Dan Patrick on the Dan Patrick Show. He's such a nice guy. And even here at SiriusXM, now what is the show called, Bob Papa and Ross Tucker, they do a show called what?
It's The Opening Drive.
The Opening Drive. And they had Victor on. You got Victor Cruz's number?
Yeah, we can get him on.
Can you tell Victor Cruz I want him to come on my show. See if Victor Cruz will come on my show. Okay, I will break with format and have a guest on a Monday show if you can get Victor Cruz on. But before you do that, let's go back. Let's first go to the Dan Patrick Show. And let's do it from the jump because we only played a little of it in the first hour, Kaplan. Here's Dan Patrick. Now, this is a guy who advocated for the death of George Zimmerman over the weekend. An NFL player, just signed a new contract, part of Jay-Z's new sports representation arm. And here's Dan Patrick welcoming on Victor Cruz. And I'd love to know if Dan Patrick would have allowed Victor Cruz to come onto his show, if Victor Cruz had been speaking about him, Dan Patrick, that he wanted killed, or Dan Patrick's children, or Dan Patrick's wife, or Dan Patrick's cousin, or Dan Patrick's brother. or anybody that Dan Patrick holds near and dear to him. I wonder how Dan Patrick would have approached Victor Cruz. It wouldn't have been like this.
He's Victor Cruz, one of our favorites, the Giants wide receiver. He's been busy, got a new deal, and apparently hooking up Jay-Z with him as his agent. A lot to get to. Let me recap last night, though, Victor, before we talk about the contract and Jay-Z. The reaction to the Zimmerman verdict there when you had the tweet. Take us in the moment there of what you were feeling and why you tweeted.
Oh, well, just in the moment, it was just, when it happened, I was, I'm not going to lie, I was a little angry because, as a father, you think about, if that was your son, if that was your kid that happened to, and you want some type of justice to be served for what happened, and then, the verdict comes and it's the opposite of what you thought it would be.
Now, you hear him saying, what happened? If this was your son, and you would want some sort of justice if what happened happened. Now, what happened in Victor Cruz's mind, because there's no other way to deduce this based upon what he tweeted and what he's saying right now in the first minute of his airtime here on the Dan Patrick Show earlier today. What he's saying is what happened here is clearly George Zimmerman had murder in his heart, got out of his car, tracked down like an animal in the forest Trayvon Martin and shot him dead. That's it. Cut and dried, nice and easy, Japanese. It's over. It's cut. That's it. That's all that happened. That's it. This is the way that he's... Now, is Dan Patrick cutting in here? Well, hold on, Victor. What did happen? Tell me what you think happened. By the way, is Dan Patrick given his feelings on the interpretation of events in terms of what he feels happened? I'd love to know if Dan Patrick, wherever he lives, somewhere in Connecticut at some palatial estate, I would imagine... If the neighborhood that Dan Patrick lives in, if it had been jacked up with burglaries and break-ins and robberies over a 14-month period, 8 or 9 of them, as was the case down in Sanford, Florida, in the Zimmerman community, I wonder if Dan Patrick would have felt at ease seeing a black guy that he didn't know in a hoodie walking down the street. I just ask the question out of the sheer curiosity. That's all. But what Victor Cruz, let's be clear here. Victor Cruz is meaning to say what happened was that Trayvon Martin was just shot dead by some evil white racist guy. That's what Victor Cruz is saying here. And so, in the moment I felt angry, I felt I wanted justice, so I wanted the hood to get involved and track down George Zimmerman and put a cap or two in his ass. That basically is what Victor Cruz is saying here. Dan Patrick, of course, having racial manners as a white man, a white liberal man especially, having racial manners. I've not heard the rest of this conversation, but I'd be shocked if Dan Patrick is going to press Victor Cruz on anything. Let's find out.
It comes and it's the opposite of what you thought it would be. And, I put out the tweet as a reaction to what I was seeing on Twitter, to what my friends and family were writing on Twitter. And I put the tweet out there. And once I put it out, I was like, man, that's, it's not the right thing to say. There's kids that follow me, and I don't want them to think that I'm trying to incite violence on anyone.
Well, hold on a second. What were you trying to do? If you weren't trying to incite violence, what were you trying to do? Apology, by the way, not accepted. Not accepted. I'm sorry. You crossed the line. This is an unpardonable sin as far as I'm concerned. I hope your legs are broken when you're going over the middle for a pass this year. I hope somebody breaks both your legs, not one of them, both of them. What were you trying to do? If you weren't trying to incite violence, what exactly were you attempting to do? These are questions I'm asking. I'm sure that Dan Patrick is going to ask him these questions because these are the questions coming into my mind. I'm trying to put myself in the talk show host's position, in this case, the uber cool Dan Patrick, and I'm trying to see if Dan is going to do, what I do as a talk show host instinctively. If that's not what you were trying to do, what were you trying to do? I'm sure Dan is going to get to it. Let's listen.
Those aren't my intentions. I'm not that type of guy. Where I come from, I heard violence outside my window each and every day, and I don't want to be someone to promote that even more so. So, that was just my opinion at the time, and I don't want it to go over as kids. Kids look up to me, and I'm a role model to a lot of these kids. And I don't want them to think that what I wrote was okay or what I wrote was something that should be done or something that's positive in our community when it's really not. So that's why I took it down, and I issued an apology to everyone, to fans, to kids, to everyone around the world. That
I'm sorry, hold on. Did you apologize to kids, to fans? Did you apologize to George Zimmerman? Have you reached out to George Zimmerman? Victor, have you apologized to him? Dan will probably ask. Let's continue to listen in.
Felt negatively about what I wrote out there in the Twitter world.
But you were outspoken, and I don't. There's nothing wrong with being outspoken or being passionate or something that's personal to you. But you have to be cautious, though, to a certain degree. What if your agency said we're going to have somebody who's going to be an editor of your tweets, or somebody who could at least help you say, do you really want to say that in a moment? Would you sign up for that if all of a sudden your agency said that's what we want to do with your tweets?
Wait a second. Is Dan Patrick really asking him this question? It's okay to get emotional, but you got to get emotional in the right way. Victor, I'm trying to. It sounds like Dan Patrick is saying, I'm trying to understand you. I'm trying to really kind of reason this through with you. I understand that you wanted George Zimmerman dead. I personally, if I would be honest with you and everybody else, I would say the same thing. Dan Patrick, would want to see George Zimmerman dealt with in a way that is not favorable to his long-term health. Oh, Dan Patrick feels this. Oh, Dan Patrick feels this. Do you hear anything in Dan Patrick's voice which would lead one to conclude that he was outraged over Victor Cruz's tweet? And how come it hits me in a way that I say to myself, if this was a white guy on the phone with, first of all, it was a white guy on the phone with Dan Patrick, and if it was a reversed situation, he wouldn't be on the Dan Patrick show. Okay? Dan Patrick would be ripping him left and right, along with the same racially sensitive, mild-mannered media that's out there who love this. Oh, it's in their wheelhouse. Oh, they love this kind of stuff. Oh, when they can excoriate a white guy and set themselves apart as, not with those white people. Oh, they love that. They love that. Now he's trying to talk Victor. He's trying to be a confidant here, I get the feeling. And he's trying to talk Victor Cruz through this. Maybe from now on your tweet should have a filter. Maybe Jay-Z and you can get together, and maybe Jay-Z's got, I don't know, one of the flunkies at Rockefeller Records who really doesn't have too much to do. You could send the tweets through him, and he can advise you one way or another whether or not the tweet should go out as is, or if we should revise it and maybe edit it a little bit. I see. Well, Dan, you're providing Victor Cruz with a very nice service here. I've still not seen a hint in the voice of Dan Patrick's, heard a hint in the voice that he's even mildly angered by Victor Cruz. Because don't forget, we have to have Victor come back on the show another time. That's important. Our shows are all predicated on guests and phone calls and guests and phone calls and more guests and playing around with the little staff that he's got there, the 6 or 7 little dweebs that are a part of the package there, and more guests, because it's guests that people want to hear, of course. So we have to be nice to Victor Cruz. Hopefully in the next minute or so, there'll be something from Dan Patrick which will indicate that he is a little bit upset with Victor Cruz, a little bit. And then we'll hear Bob Papa and Ross Tucker, the opening drive on SiriusXM's NFL Radio. We'll get to them next. This is the love-in across America with Victor Cruz, who called for the killing of George Zimmerman over the weekend. Who would have thunk it? Roll it.
You sign up for that if all of a sudden your agency said that's what we want to do with your tweets?
Yeah. I won't be opposed to that. We would have something that, if there was ever a tweet that I wanted to put out there and I had to question myself about it, I think that's when you would go to your agency like, hey, what do you think about this tweet? And they may give me another way of wording it or saying something else or tell me not to put it up there at all. Yeah. But I won't be opposed to it. It's just, you really have to be careful about social media nowadays and what you post and, Instagram and pictures you put up and things you put on Twitter, because it's real. Anything can become news, whether good, bad, or indifferent. It can become national news in a matter of minutes. Yes. So you really have to be careful.
But what was the frustrating part, the most frustrating part that spurred you to tweet? It's one thing to be angry in a moment, but then say, you know what, I have to get this off my chest.
It was just reading all the comments and understanding that what happened and just discussing it with with friends and family, and we just felt like there was no way Zimmerman would get something. I mean, just something. I mean, whether it was 30 days in jail for whatever happened, we wanted some type of repercussion for a little boy.
Oh, my goodness. Stop. Stop. I'm going to throw up here. Folks, I'm going to throw up again here with the little boy shit. You know, hey, Victor, take down the picture of 12-year-old Trayvon, okay? The kid was a juvenile delinquent. The kid was a burglar himself. He was a thief. He was a bad kid. Little boy. Little boy. Oh, my goodness. It sounds like it's getting good now. It puts your boots on, though, because we're getting deep in the bullshit right now. Roll the tape.
It was just when nothing happened, when the verdict was not guilty, you know, we were appalled and we were upset and we react in a certain way, and everyone was reacting via Twitter, and I decided to chime in.
Of course, because and when you say what happened, let me reiterate again. Let me reiterate again. When you say what happened was Zimmerman had blood in his heart, had murder in his heart, hate in his heart, got out of his car, tracked down Trayvon Martin, shot him dead. That's it. That's it. Do you have Victor Cruz's number?
Yeah, I'm trying to get him on.
Like, get him on the show. Get him on. See if he'll come on my show. See if he'll come on my show. And then, of course, there's the opening drive with Bob Papa and Ross Tucker right here on SiriusXM's Good Ship Mad Dog or SiriusXM Radio. I was going to say Mad Dog Radio. Different channel. And let's listen to how Bob and Ross Tucker welcomed, one of the nicest guys you're ever going to want to meet, Victor Cruz, onto their show this morning. Take a listen.
Well, Victor Cruz, big play after big play after big play, and now he's got a big payday. He's got a new contract, and he takes a couple minutes to join us here on the program. Victor, Bob Papa, Ross Tucker, congratulations on the new deal, and how you doing?
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. I'm doing well. It's Monday morning, so those are always a drag, but I'm here, man. Good to go.
Victor, I'm mad at you for signing that contract. I was getting a lot of mileage out of all my tweets saying you should keep holding out, man.
Another joke.
It's tough, man. Mentally, I couldn't do it, man. It was just, you know what I mean? I couldn't go another year just with that on my mind, answering all these questions from guys like you every year and stuff like that. So it's I'm glad to get it over with.
Victor, obviously, look, it's the whole thing is about it's rolling the dice. But when you look at, I mean, you just look at a guy that played there before you, who was having prolific.
Wait, Kaplan, are they actually going to go into a regular conversation about football here?
It appears they are, yeah.
Full disclosure, Bob Papa is the radio play-by-play voice of the New York Giants, so no conflict of interest there, of course. Wow. Have you called Vic?
Yeah, I sent him a text. I'm waiting.
Oh, you sent him a text? Yeah. Okay. All right. Hopefully we get him on the show. I'll break tradition. I'll break format. We don't have guests on this show. Only on Fridays, typically. But I will break format to get Victor Cruz on my show here today and tonight. So bring him on the show. Tell him we'd love to have him. Lee is in Washington, D.C. He's on the Dino Costa Show, Hour 3 on a Monday. Lee.
Doing pretty good. You know, I'm just a little disappointed with some of the reactions from Al Sharpton and etc.
Well, why would you? Wouldn't you expect the kind of reactions from Sharpton and others? What are you surprised? What? Why?
I would.
Why?
Well, unfortunately, because you want to believe that he and people like him, and I'm going to say people like him because there are others out there, as we know, that they are for civil rights, civil liberty, and but the reality is every time, actions speak louder than words, and the actions that we see from him and we've seen the past few days from others like him have been, if anything, but for civil rights, etc.
Well, hold on a second. But he's made his living on racial division, Al Sharpton.
He has, and I think
he is He's smiling from ear to ear behind closed doors that Zimmerman was acquitted.
Exactly. And you know what gets me is that I wish that, he would, I wish people, you see, it's all about perspective. And, Dino, what you did today, this afternoon, you provide perspective. And I think it's all about, like I said, it's all about perspective. The fact that the 911 call, where, they edited that Zimmerman, automatically thought that Trayvon Martin was black. As we know, the real 911 call, the full version, was that he didn't know right away. Again, perspective. You provide perspective. I had a question. I want to ask you. What do you? The weather on February 25th, 2012. I was looking up in the almanac. The weather ranged from about 59 degrees till high of, I believe, 79.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was shot, Trayvon was shot. It was about 7 p.m., about 7-ish p.m., maybe I think 7:10. And so, Orlando, Florida. I'm thinking that weather. It's not that cold. Why was he wearing a hood over his face? I know from being from Brooklyn. I know, wear a hood. You wear a hood when it's chilly, when it's, cool. But it wasn't a cold night.
Well, I can't answer that. I could. Then I'm just assuming the mind of one Trayvon Martin completely, and I can't answer that. But for those who say, I love these people. Well, he was being profiled by George Zimmerman. May I make the suggestion? Am I too pompously arrogant, or too pompously realistic, maybe, to ask the question if there is a time and place where justifiable profiling is perfectly legitimately all right? What, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you telling me that profiling on any level, in any circumstance and situation is wrong? Let me get this right. 14 law infractions in that community over an 8-month period. And you're going to tell me, and all of the people that were the perpetrators with eyewitness accounts were all black. Are you going to tell me that when an all points bulletin goes out, is that not a profile? I don't care what color you are. Is it not a profile? Some of you people will reach for anything because all you do when you wake up in the morning is you see color. You see color. You see black. You see white. You see injustice. You see the man keeping you down. You're pathetic. A lot of you who think that way. You're pathetic. Orlando, Florida. Steve is on the Dino Costa Show, hour 3 on a Monday. Hi, Steve.
Dino, how you doing?
Hi.
Good. I love your show. I just had to call in. I couldn't agree with you more. And you brought up that whole profile thing. I'm so sick of just hearing the media and the way they talk. I got 2 quick points. One, George Zimmerman had every right to get out of that car and protect his perceived family, friends, neighborhood, possessions.
Yep.
I experienced the same thing in a neighborhood I live in now before I moved down here in Charlotte. We had break-ins nonstop. Guy down the street had his house broken into, stole guns, stole jewelry, you name it. So you know what? The police tried to do the right thing, wait for them. Unfortunately, they are taxed. The amount of crime that goes on in this country far outweighs their ability to respond to everything that's out there. So that's why, if you look at the statistics, why so many gun owners are in this country? Because you know what? We have to unfortunately, take the steps to protect ourselves, our families, our possessions, because we can't sit and wait around for the police all day long. So he had every right to. It didn't mean he was out there, stalking the guy.
No. The last thing, Steve, the last thing he was thinking about was killing somebody when he stepped out of the car.
Exactly. And my second quick point is, I think the bigger picture, and this is what pisses me off more than anything. It's been high time, a long time, that this country, the black community, needs to look within themselves to say why there's so many so-called injustices in the justice system, in the social setting. Because you know what? If you look at the majority of crime that occurs in this country, the majority of people that are convicted of crime, you guessed they're black. As sad as it is, and when you equate that,
well, it's the truth as well. It's the truth is what it is. I mean, nobody should have to feel shameful in pointing these things out. Only if you have racial manners should you feel shameful in pointing these things out. Well, of course, even black people. What do you think? Black people are stupid? They're acutely aware of the huge problem with law breaking that goes on with people of their same background. Of course. Absolutely. And no, and I agree with Steve, and I said it before, he did nothing wrong by getting out of that vehicle as far as I'm concerned. And in terms of the reliance on the police exclusively, what are you kidding me? Is that how some of you people live? I pray that some of you don't have families, that some of you don't have children, that in a time of crisis would need you to protect them, their lives, their personal property. What do you think, a call to the police is always what's going to get it done? I'm sorry. I don't operate like that, people. I call 911 after I act. Then I call 911. You act differently. That's up to you. I don't operate like that. I never operate like that. I take care of my own family and my own self first and foremost through my own actions and with my own decisions and determinations. So there was nothing wrong with Zimmerman getting out of that car. And if you lived in that neighborhood, so by the way, has the NFL weighed in on this yet, Kaplan? Any statement from the commissioner's still out to lunch. New York Giants say anything to anybody yet?
No, not yet.
No? Okay. Atlanta Falcons weigh in?
No.
How about the Dolphins with the Pouncey twins or the Steelers?
No, I don't believe so.
No. Okay. Sweep it under the carpet like it never happened. Sweep it under the carpet like it never happened. If I lived in that community and George Zimmerman had gotten out doing due diligence to look out for my community, my people, and the other citizens that lived in that community, I would have shaken his hand and I would have bought him a steak dinner with a cigar and whatever his favorite adult drink was afterwards. And you would have too. And you would have too. And many people in that community thanked George Zimmerman, by the way. Appropriately so. But, of course, as Victor Cruz sees it, this was nothing but a cold-blooded killing by someone with evil intentions the moment his foot hit the ground as he made his way out of the car. Jackass. Andy's in Atlanta, Georgia, on the Dino Costa Show, Hour 3 on a Monday. Andy.
What's up, Big Dino?
Hello, Andy.
Hey, I was calling to let you know how hypocritical Jesse Jackson was.
Well, isn't he always?
Well, here's the thing. A couple years back on the Neil Bort Show, he's the radio guy down here in Atlanta. He retired in January.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was talking about, I guess it was back in the early 90s or late 80s or something, Jesse Jackson made this comment, something to this effect, saying he'd feel more safer in a dark alley with a white man following him than he would a black man following him.
Yeah, I remember that. He did say that. He said that he would feel a sense of relief if he had heard footsteps behind him and he saw a white person instead of a black person. Those words did indeed come out of the mouth of one Jesse Jackson. What is this now here? What is this? Occupy Wall Street orchestrating a violent Trayvon Martin protest. Oh, I see. Well, I mean, the criminals behind these kinds of violent protests can identify with a thug, such as was Trayvon Martin. To British Columbia, Mike is up there in Canada. He's on the Dino Costa Show, Hour 3 on a Monday. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Dino. Since the verdict came down on Saturday or Sunday, I believe, I was just waiting for you to get back on the air because I knew that you were going to hit this hard, and you have tonight. Up here in Canada, this case has really taken a lot of people by storm, and it's a really stupid, ignorant type storm. If I have to hear one more person use the argument, well, he was told not to follow him, I'm probably going to bash my head against a brick wall, because the 911 operator who he was talking to actually took the stand and said that by law we're not allowed to tell you what to do or demand you what to do. All we can do is give you suggestions, because if something happens, then we're held liable. So that's number one. That's the most stupid argument people keep saying, and they just get their facts wrong. They're not looking at the case. They're just taking whatever the media tells them, and they sound like complete and utter clueless morons.
Well, they are. They are utter morons. They're maggots. They infest the media. They create the narrative, the tempo, the pace, the flow of the news. Well, let me bring this to the next logical progression in my mind, if you don't mind. Now, George Zimmerman is a Hispanic, is he not, Kaplan?
He is.
All right, and George Zimmerman, the Hispanic, shot dead a black guy, did he not? Am I right so far?
You're correct.
Okay. And the news media went absolutely and positively bonkers over this, did they not?
Absolutely.
Okay. Aaron Hernandez is Hispanic, is he not?
He is.
Okay. Aaron Hernandez shot a black guy to death about 2 weeks ago, it has been alleged. Am I right on this?
Yeah, that's correct.
What does Victor Cruz have to say about this? What does Al and Jesse and President Obama and wait a minute? It's just hit me. I just want to make sure I have this right. A Hispanic guy in Florida shot dead a black guy. Okay, uproar, crazy. I mean, everybody just coming unglued over this. Hispanic guy plays for the New England Patriots, shoots to death a black guy by the name of Odin Lloyd. Where's the news media? Okay. Is there a difference here? I'm trying to figure this one out. I got to be wrong. I got to be wrong. This is wrong. There's something I'm not getting here. 2 Hispanic guys shoot 2 black guys. One in self-defense, and that thing has caused the earth to move. Another Hispanic guy brings a black guy down a dark road to a gravel pit and shoots him execution style in the head, snuffs him out with the intention to kill him from the moment he got in the car. And yet, I don't know. I must be confused. Darwin is in Los Angeles, California. Hi, Darwin. Darvin, excuse me. Hi, Darvin.
Thanks for that correction. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Dino, man, 2 points. The media put this out. This is something that, they'll say this right here, they'll make an uproar for everybody to kind of get more and more dumbed down and seeing what's going on, from the TV perspective, and instead of really looking at what's going on in this world, in this country behind the scenes. This is another tactic that they'll use. So, of course, they're going to use this trial to pump it up. Black on black crime, that's no news. Nobody cares about that. The Aaron Hernandez thing, that's just getting played out. So we'll see what happens with that within the next year or so. I also agree with you about, Sharpton. This will be him, chasing the ambulance and making his money. Our community, we know what that's about. The thing that I don't agree is about Zimmerman. I think there's a couple of things that have been said on the calls that I've listened to before. He didn't even call. It wasn't a 911 that he called. He called a private line for one thing. And injuries were so bad, he didn't have.
It's very difficult. Darvin, I'm sorry. You keep coming in and out. Very difficult. I'm aware of the fact that he didn't call necessarily the police department. He called some other line. And the guy told him that he should stay in his car. But Zimmerman did not break any law at all, looking out for himself and his community. If Howie Mickelstein was on the other end of that gun, are we even talking? Does Victor Cruz even know about the situation? By the way, has the NFL weighed in yet? No? Mr. Joshua, look on. The NFL certainly has got to weigh in on this. One of their players called for George Zimmerman to be killed by the Hood. Well, the Hood messed with George Zimmerman, and the Hood lost. To George in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hi, George.
Hello?
Yes, George, you're on the air.
Hey, Dino. Hey, man, you nailed that, man. I turned on your show around 3 o'clock Vegas time, a little after 3, I guess it was, and I was listening to you talk, and I said, damn, this guy's talking just like Fox News. And, I mean, as a sports guy, I give you a lot of props for having the cojones to actually explain or try to explain to average people what the way it goes. And I can't believe the NFL, another point you mentioned about the NFL, I can't believe the commissioner not coming out strongly, in support of, to protect like Zimmerman, because let's face it, the guy's probably got no life for at least the next 5 to 10 years as far as being able to walk down the street here in mainland USA, unless he goes to some place like, say, Alaska or Guam or somewhere. He could probably he could survive in Guam, because I lived there one time. So basically, you understand what I'm saying, right?
I understand completely what you're saying. It's but it is what it is. I mean, the commissioner of the National Football League is an empty suit. He's a hollow, empty suit. He's a phony. And he happens to be a panty-waist liberal himself, Roger Goodell. And his inconsistencies are galling. His inconsistencies and the way he deals with things are galling. And whether or not Roger Goodell wants to admit this or not, he's got a runaway league right now. The criminality element in the NFL is really pushing through. You want to talk about an image problem? Here's the big sheriff supposed to be riding into town. Roger Goodell ain't going to take no guff from anyone. Right? Here's the big sheriff, Roger Goodell, going to lay down the new law. Going to draw that line in the sand. This is a new NFL. It's the dawning of the new age of the NFL of accountability and personal responsibility. I see. I don't think the NFL has ever been as lawless and as fugitive-oriented as it is right now, under the watch of one Roger Goodell. And nothing, a cone of silence coming from the National Football League offices concerning players, one who suggested the entire jury go home and kill themselves, the other who suggested the outright killing of Zimmerman by the Hood. Well, the Hood took on Georgie first time around, and the Hood lost. El Dorado Hills, California. Craig is on the Dino Costa Show. Hi, Craig.
Hey, good evening, Dino.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, I moved to California from Maricopa County in Arizona, where we had a sheriff by the name of Joe Arpaio who used to...
oh, yeah.
You've heard of him.
Oh, definitely, yes.
The populace over there would whine and bitch because he would outfit some of the worst criminals in the county in pink jumpsuits, forgetting or overlooking the fact that these people deserve to be in jail, and if they're being objectified as criminals, who gives a shit? And, another issue we had in Arizona was border protection. And this gets me to something you said earlier about racial profiling. The state of Arizona was protecting its borders from people coming in from Mexico, but the liberal populace in Arizona would go insane if a single Mexican was pulled over and asked to present his papers. Like, who are we supposed to be pulling over? People that look Asian, people that look black? Of course not. The country to the south of Arizona was Mexico. It wasn't China. It wasn't Nigeria. So who are you going to look for? You're going to look for Mexicans. And the FBI has been solving cases for years based on racial and other profiling. That's just how it's done. You go where the percentages say you should go, and that's how you solve crime.
Well, you're right. You're right, and you're getting to the point where, Craig, I was talking about how profiling is legitimate. That you should profile. The profiling is perfectly allowable, or should be. The thing is, some of you may be saying, Dino, it seems like you're overjoyed at the verdict that saw George Zimmerman walk out of the courtroom a completely and totally free man. And the fact of the matter is that I don't hide this. Without question, I am thrilled. It made my weekend. I am totally relieved and overjoyed that this man came within a whisker of spending 30 years behind bars in an unconscionable legal act that somehow got this into a courtroom and made this man stand trial in what I thought was an abomination. And to see him walk out of that courtroom a free man made me totally overjoyed. Totally overjoyed. Because if he had been convicted and had served time, the message that it would have sent would have been the worst kind. There's a lot of people in my audience, and I'm talking about people that are over the age of 60. Maybe you're 70. Maybe you're older than that. And you're listening to the show. Is this the America that back in 1965 you thought would be the America you'd be living in? Is this the America? Because I got to tell you something. People are tired. People are really tired of being pushed around by criminals, by being pushed around by thugs, maimed, killed, life destroyed, dreams destroyed, merchandise taken, money stolen. People are getting tired of this. And they're pushing back. And that's why more guns are sold in this country every day. We have seen a rise in the amount of weapon purchases in this country. Thank God for that. Because I feel much safer in an armed populace than a disarmed populace. And people are tired of relying on other people to take care of them, to protect them and their families. And to me, the Zimmerman verdict was one in the column for the good guys, as far as I'm concerned, for the good guys. People are getting tired of being pushed around by thugs, by creeps, by criminals, by lawbreakers. It's high time that the people got disgusted with this. Jason is in St. Louis, Missouri, USA, on the Dino Costa Show. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Dino. Good evening, man. How you doing?
Hi, Jason.
Right?
Hey, guy. Yeah, everything's good.
Hey, I had to call in on it. I mean, great discussion, great topic. It's real hot button. It's very emotional. I kind of tuned in about an hour ago, and I caught kind of a tail end of a comment you was making. So if I misquote you or regurgitate it wrong, forgive me for it. But
yeah, go ahead.
I heard you say something to the effect that, you agree with the fact Zimmerman should have got out the car and pursued Martin and pursued the situation of what he thought may or may not be occurring.
Right.
And I remember when this first came down the pike months ago, we were talking about it, and I called in, and my comment was, as a neighborhood watch, that's his duty to watch and report, not watch and confront. And I'll stick to that. Because I think, and I mean, you said, about an hour ago, you said, you would shake his hand, you would give him support. But say he was convicted, would your handshake or your support give him much consolation if he was out there doing the right thing? And that's why I feel that whatever occurred in that altercation, who attacked who first, we'll never truly know that. But the stage was set when he stepped out of the car with a pistol and pursued a kid that he thought may or may not be doing something wrong. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll say this much, and I'm just like you. I want to be. I have a wife. I have a son. I live in a decent neighborhood, but it's a little, little sprinkles of crime here and there, and everybody naturally profiles. You see somebody looking a certain way, walking around, keep your eye on them. But from what I understand, from what I can gather, this kid wasn't jumping over somebody's fence. He wasn't up on somebody's front porch or looking through a window. From what I can gather, he was walking down a sidewalk, a neutral area where people are free to travel. Now, was he a bad kid? He may have been. Was he going to commit a crime that night? We'll never know. And see, that's the problem. And I don't think Zimmerman couldn't tell you that definitively, that this kid was getting ready to commit a crime.
Hey, no, Jason, I understand what you're saying. I have no problem with Zimmerman wanting to make sure, with the frequency with which that neighborhood was hit up, I have no problem with Zimmerman taking his time and doing his due diligence to ensure that this person was not going to commit a crime. That's the way I feel about it.
Okay, here's the thing. You say you have no problem with him wanting to ensure. Okay, how was he going to go about ensuring that? That's the whole issue. He's going to.
Well, maybe he would have saw this kid peering into windows like he had reported with other people. And in addition to Zimmerman, other people had reported people unknown people peering into windows in that facility, in that complex.
Was Martin doing that evening though?
Not at the exact time that Zimmerman eyeballed him, but that's why he went and followed to make sure that he wasn't going to do anything.
And see, that's my issue.
You're talking about a situation in which just a few weeks before that, two guys broke into a woman's apartment with a little infant, okay? She saw them. She took the baby. She ran upstairs and locked herself in a closet. Okay, they tried to get in. They robbed her anyway and took off 2 black guys. What if Zimmerman thought that maybe this was one of those 2 guys and he just had to make sure? How can you fault Zimmerman for wanting to be as thorough as possible?
And that's fair. Okay, but let's flip the tables a little bit, Dino. And I've been listening to you for 2-3 years now, and you're big on freedom and rights and things like that.
Right.
Okay, say Dino Costa's walking down that neighborhood.
Right.
All right? And say that neighborhood has been hit by a rash of people of Italian descent.
Right.
That fits a certain profile.
Right.
That Dino Costa fits.
Mm-hmm.
You're walking down the street.
Right.
I've listened to you plenty of times on the radio.
Yeah.
And you walking down the street minding your business, and
Right.
I've seen pictures of you. You wear hoodies sometimes. Okay?
Right.
All right. You walking down the street minding Dino's business. Some guy pulls up on you. There's been under instruction by law enforcement, trained professional law enforcement. Do not pursue this man. Stay in your car. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And this guy pursues you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, would you not have an issue with that on any kind of level?
Well, I'd ask the guy why are you. I would ask the guy why he's following me. Is what I would do. And when he indicated to me that he's following me because he just wanted to know, do I live in the? Listen, hold on a second. Let's roll that back. I've been in condominium facilities previously. Okay, townhome communities, where people have asked me if I live there. Where people have asked me, do I live there? What am I doing there? Now, if this was a said complex that had been hit up by guys like me, white, 6 foot tall, brown hair, blue eyes, medium build, and someone said to me, hey, what are you doing? And then I had said, hey, I'm just walking back to my dad's house. Oh, your dad lives here? Yes. Okay, fine, because, I'm with Neighborhood Watch here, and we've been hit a few times. I'd understand. I certainly wouldn't attack the guy. I certainly wouldn't blindside the guy, attack him, slam his head into the fucking pavement. I wouldn't do any of that. I can tell you that. My goodness. Jerry's in Kingsville, Ohio. Hi, Jerry.
Yeah, hey, Dino. Hey, listen, I got a couple of things I want to say to you. First of all, George Zimmerman was a neighborhood watch captain or whatever you want to call it. And what he was doing, the media says that he was stalking him. Or
He wasn't stalking him. He was merely trying to find out where he was going. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. He was watching him. And that's all. Now, let me say this. If George Zimmerman, after getting pummeled and beaten, took out his gun and shot him and wounded him, who do you think would have got arrested that night? I can tell you who would have got arrested that night. It would have been Trayvon Martin, not George Zimmerman. Also, I'm sick and tired of them referring to him as a young boy.
Oh, please. Yes.
Listen, I'm 63 years old. On July 2nd, 1967, the day I turned 17, an Army recruiter came over and picked me up at my house, took me to New Haven, where I took a bus to Fort Dix, New Jersey. They didn't hand me a bag of Skittles when I got off that goddamn bus. They handed me an M16 and a bag of bullets, and I was no longer a child. I was a soldier. Thank you.
Well, the child thing continues to make its rounds because they continue to show nothing but the same picture all the time. 12-year-old Trevon looking angelic in a school picture. Bullshit. Back with more after this.